Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. So, I haven't been on here in a couple of weeks, and I wanted to kind of explain something to you guys that has happened that ended up being really kind of profound. And I was on the train on the 20th, and the train it stopped into the station, and then everybody got up and the train then kind of jostled everybody around, and it wasn't fully into the station, but nobody had said that over the PA. So that's why everybody got up thinking that the train had fully stopped when it hadn't. And once it went again, I slammed into a pole, and I felt my knee dislocate. And it was a really bad one too. I actually took photos of what happened, and I ended up on the ground, and my I saw my knee was on the complete other side of where it should be, and it was in a bent position. So this is extremely painful, as anyone who has ever had this happen can say. But for me, it's a first time. I guess it's a first time for everything. And later on, the doctor told me, "You get one of these, and that's it." I'm like, "Well, doc, I didn't want a dislocated knee in the first place." So anyway, I'm down on the ground, and I can't move, and I'm in just searing pain. And they've called an ambulance, and I was able to take photos of everything, and I noticed that my knee, you could feel underneath the kneecap, and I hate to even like say that to you guys. I don't want to gross anybody out here, but they took me to the hospital, and the X-ray tech actually had a hard time trying to X-ray my knee because it was in such a strange position that they kind of like got together, the X-ray tech and an assistant or whoever it was got together and kind of like made a game plan, if you will. In the meantime, though, I was in a lot of pain, and they gave me fentanyl, which was like something I've always heard about like being like not good, and nothing really good comes from fentanyl. But in this case, um, I'm in the hospital, and like, it's the best place to be if you're on fentanyl, I guess. Anyway, so I'm out in the hallway, and I called my cousin, and I'm glad that he picked up, and so we talked for a little bit, and he was telling me, he was like, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And that was good. I'm glad. And then a short time later, I called Chris from Stories and Cardboard. And at this point, I'm still in a lot of pain, and the fentanyl really wasn't working all that well. And so, and I was really nervous too, because they said that they were waiting there to actually put me out in order to get my knee back. So I'm really kind of nervous about this whole thing. And I called Chris, and I was just like, "Hey, tell me a couple of stories about the hobby or whatever, cards, and so that's what he did. And Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That made things a lot better. And so my mind is never too far away from the hobby, wherever I am, or what position I may be in, such as a dislocated knee. So in this case, that really did help. And this is really one of the things that I started to think about even afterwards, that there are a lot of great people in the hobby, and you just kind of have to reach out to them, or they may reach out to you. And I think there's more better people in the hobby than there are bad. But 9 times out of 10, I think we tend to like focus on the bad and not the good. And so today I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit about the good part of this. And it's still a process. And so I was out. So they wheeled me in, and they knocked me out. And so uh, when I woke up, this is the really kind of the strange thing of the whole thing. I woke up and I could not see the nurses' faces. I couldn't really see a whole lot. Everything was so blurry, and it kind of felt like that I was being downloaded into a video game. At least that's what I thought. And by the way, they gave me ketamine as well, and I don't really know exactly what ketamine is. I've heard of it before. I don't do drugs. My drug is sports cards. So I'm not familiar with these drugs. Like I don't take drugs. I don't even smoke. I've never smoked, and I've talked a lot about the tobacco trade and tobacco cards. And so I don't really have a position of knowing what it is like to smoke a cigarette. I have smoked a couple of cigars in the past, but that's a cigar and not a cigarette. So I'm not familiar terribly with what ketamine is or does. I may now, in fact, I didn't really go into conversation with the nurses about what ketamine was or what the side effects were. I think I may have found out what those side effects were afterwards. Um, so I woke up and I was really kind of like, where the hell am I? And how come I'm hearing these voices from these people who have no distinct characteristics in their face or their bodies. And I did notice that one of the nurses had glasses, but I could only see the rim of the glasses, and that was it. So that's kind of scary if you wake up like that. It's like that Twilight Zone episode with the lady who wakes up in the hospital and she sees everybody, all the doctors have pig noses. That's kind of like what it was, except nobody had pig noses in this. I just thought that I had woken up and I was being downloaded into a video game or something like that, or uploaded, and that was quite scary. And the thing is, I can laugh about it now, along with the other stuff that happened afterwards. But at the time, it was pretty scary to me, and so like I didn't know what to make of it. And the doctor is asking me all these questions, and they kind of reminded me too. If you guys have ever played like a Super Nintendo or a Nintendo where you had to like blow on the cartridges to get it to go, and you see all these lines on the screen, that's kind of like what it was when I first woke up. And so I don't know if that's normal. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you, but this is what happened. So anyway, the nurses were really good. I have to admit, they were really good, very professional. And they had one nurse there, and I forget her name, but I'm just gonna say it's a tattoo wolf girl because she had a tattoo of a wolf on her arm and a bunch of tattoos as well. But I again, for like maybe 45 minutes or so, I couldn't tell exactly where I was. And so, who knows that could be just the process of coming out of anesthesia as well. But what wasn't, I don't think, normal was all of a sudden, like I had to go to the bathroom really bad. I had to take a leak really bad, and the lady gave me a bottle with I guess the nozzle was pointing down, and I was like, how do I use this? And she's like, figure it out. Well, okay, I figured it out, kinda, I guess, but I dumped everything on me. There's really no sense of modesty when you're in a hospital and when you're in that situation. And so I'll leave it to your imaginations. I'm not going to go any further than that. However, I started to think about other things, exactly where I was in this position. I started to think about mortality and my mortality. And now I've told you guys in the past that I've lost my father. I've now lost both my parents at a very young age. I think I'm 17 years old. Just like not even out of high school. I lost a lot of other people in my life, and the one thing I can tell you is that people come and go, and it's perfectly normal. We all die. If we're born, we're gonna die. And matters what you do in this life. Um, your experiences, how you love, how you live, how you learn, it all matters, and the way you behave and act towards others. And I started to think um, about what I do here on YouTube and other platforms. And my goal for this channel is to teach you guys, and I also want to learn too. It's one of the reasons why I started my channel. I started to think like of all the stuff that I see on YouTube, there's a lot of negative stuff. I mean, truly, stuff that really doesn't matter in normal everyday life. I hate to say this, but we're kind of like an insulated community here on YouTube, and as far as card collectors go and card YouTubers, and I, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. There are a lot more important things, and your life can change in a New York second like that, and it can change forever, and it can change for the worse, or it can change for the better, and it depends on your outlook on these things. My outlook at the time was that I don't want to die in a hospital. I may not have a choice on that, but I'd rather not do that. I don't know how long I'm going to live, and I guess that doesn't really matter. I've already lived a lot longer than people have actually thought I would live for, and just the fact that I have a gravestone with my name on it, and it says my date of birth, and then that's it. And so when I was born, it was kind of a hairy situation. I started to think about again was like we tend to focus on things that really don't really. I mean, they do kind of matter, but not really. I mean, it's good to I guess go after the bad guys, and you do have your YouTubers that do go after that. Um, but there's been a lot of fraud in the hobby going back to 1971, and what I've noticed too is over the last year or so doing this is that we as a hobby have not really learned from our past. I've been in the hobby now. This will be my 30th year in vintage, and over 40 years, I'd say, since I got into card collecting since '82. So I'm kind of an old guy here, but like I don't feel it. And the thing is, your brain doesn't kind of register how old you actually are. Your body does. My knee certainly does. But your brain really doesn't. And my brain kind of tells me like, listen, guy, you're like get the mind of like a 17-year-old, right? So like I think I can do everything that everybody else can do, pretty much. I Can I play basketball anymore? I'm not sure. Would I even want to? I'm not even sure about that. I love basketball. I love baseball. I played a lot of that in high school, but my body is saying, listen, you got to slow down here a little bit. You can't do what your brain thinks you can do. And again, now, like having my knee like this, it's going to be a couple more weeks. And I have to start thinking about doing things a little bit differently than I did before. Another thing about this experience that I really kind of had to learn over again, or just remind myself, was that we all take things for granted. It's usually the little things that we take for granted the most, stuff like walking. And so I being disabled through cerebral palsy, it's a very slight case. So sometimes I forget that I actually am disabled, and every once in a while, my cerebral palsy will remind me that yes, you are like in this position, and you need to figure out ways to get around whatever the problem is before you. And so I kind of forgot about that. So this experience kind of reminded me that now that I'm in an air cast and that my knee really doesn't function the way it should, and hopefully that will change within the next couple of weeks to a month or so. So things like, taking a shower and, washing your hair and getting dressed, everything that you need to do in your daily life. And so I have to kind of like figure out how to do this over again. And because I can't move my leg, and putting something like putting a sock on is like an arduous experience. And the thing is like, It's a damn sock. You've been putting your socks on for how many years now? Well, trying to do that with in this situation, I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to do this. And again here, going back to the hobby part and going to shows, um, there are a lot of very expensive cards out there, stuff that I grew up with that was not very expensive. And so, me being in the hobby for such a long time now, I have witnessed the the cards that I grew up with and the cards that I had originally bought way back in the day when I was a teenager, the vintage stuff, is now vastly more expensive. And again, it kind of reminds me over the last couple of years that I would never be able to start a collection of vintage cards now that I have in my collection. So all the Gaudis and the Play Ball and the Diamond Stars and the T206s, T207s, a lot of the Bowman Hall of Famers, even the football cards from the early 1950s, I would not be able to afford those cards now had I gotten into the hobby. So I unfortunately I got in the right time, and when I was a kid, I was thinking my buddy, who is a few years older than me, he got in at the right time back in the mid '80s to collect vintage. So I always thought that he was in the right time, and a lot of people who are younger than me would probably say that I got in at the right time to collect vintage. So in this case, if you really want to get into vintage, there's a lot of really expensive and very rare vintage sports cards now that, well, they weren't expensive when I was first starting into the vintage hobby, but they are expensive now. And what I'm trying to say is uh, that you need to figure out ways to obtain some of these cards. And uh, that may not be the easiest task in the world, but it can be done. And I think one of the ways to do it is to kind of like level up and either find new people to do business with or come up with some way to acquire, like I said, a 1933 Gaudi Dizzy Dean. And the one thing I've noticed with Ryan Nolan and his channel is that all the vintage cards that he has, which I think is pretty inspiring, to tell you the truth. He's got a really amazing card collection. Some of the cards are not uh, they're not pristine, but here's the thing: it's that as I was tell you guys, buy what you can afford, and don't worry. Truly, um, if there's a card that's super rare and you want it, it doesn't matter if it has a crease in it. Sometimes there's cards that you can upgrade. Sometimes there are cards that you're not going to be able to upgrade, and you're just going to have to contend with what is available at the time. And maybe in the future you can do this, but for the most part, what I've seen from his channel is very impressive in the way he goes about buying sports cards. One thing that I think he may do is buy and sell to upgrade or to get into the cards that he wants. I know a lot of collectors do this with modern. They buy modern and sell modern to get into vintage, and I think that's a really smart thing to do. Because if you're in my position, being in the hobby for as long as I have now, 30 plus years, I've seen where modern was in 1992. I've seen where it is in 1998 and 2005. We all kind of play merry-go-round when it comes to the hobby and hobby history. We kind of repeat the same things, but the only thing that's different is the technology. So, like, one thing I really kind of need is help from other people, whether it's groceries or something else. And you need to rely on certain people to do some of these things if you're in a position where I am now, where I can't really walk around and I can't go food shopping. So I hate to say it because I like to be such an independent guy, but I cannot depend on myself completely at this point in time. But you need to depend on somebody to help you out. And the same thing is true with the hobby. And this is where I always say that going to shows and meeting new people and dealers and just talking with them really helps you out in the long run and building a rapport with either dealers or other collectors to get the things that you want. So uh, that's vitally important, and I think that's where the hobby really is something that can help you out with this. At least card shows are. I recommend going to card shows as always. Even if you don't buy something, just take notes, take photographs of what you want or what you're looking at, and research because a lot of times the hobby isn't just about buying cards; it's about research, and you really do need to do research on what you are looking for. Otherwise, you're going to get ripped off. And so that's my recommendation to you guys. The hobby, I think, needs to kind of like be a little bit more forgiving in certain aspects. And again, I only say this is because yes, you are going to have the Cord Monroes. And, again, if you don't know who Cord Monroe is, he's the guy who forged the T206s that ended up at auction. There's a whole lot of questions I have about the Cord Monroe case because I was just informed by one of my viewers that he is going to be um, kind of like a free bird, right? He's just done his time served and that's it. He was brought back to court by a bench warrant. So that to me is really kind of strange. Why they didn't really give him a whole lot of time. I'm not even sure about if they've sentenced him yet. I don't think they did. And finding good people to surround yourself with, whether it's the hobby or outside of the hobby, is really important as well. You need to really kind of surround yourself with good people in order to make all of this happen, and you'll know the good from the bad, honestly. And it takes time to recognize the good people. And then I always say too, like there's more good people in the hobby than there are bad, and I think that's also the case with outside of the hobby as well. This is really kind of like where I say that, oh fuck, this is really killing me, guys. And so this is really where I say, like, we kind of have to focus on what is important, and not only in our lives but in the hobby as well. The hobby is great. I love the hobby. I've met so many great people in the hobby. I've met some awesome friends. Great sports cards. I love just checking out the sports cards, and as you guys can see, I've got a few new ones in the back here thanks to Cardboard Claws. So anyway, guys, I wanted to give you an update on what's going on with me. I have a lot of videos that I got to get to, and again, 3 weeks. It's just been a no go. It's frustrating for me because I do have a lot to get to on my plate, and I'm an impatient person. I really am. Although unfortunately, this requires patience. I cannot move my knee very much, and I have a lot of physical therapy ahead of me. So, guys, with that, I really thank you very much, and I hope to hear from you guys soon uh, and have a couple of good conversations going. And I also plan on doing a few more things with my channel as well, but it's going to be a slow going here because this right now is very, very painful. Just doing this and talking to you guys. But again, I hope you guys had a happy New Year and a happy holidays. And I'll talk to you guys in maybe another week or so. I'm trying to get off my foot as much as possible here to my knee. But I've got a long road ahead of me, I think, to get better with this. But everything is I think here's the thing. I'm trying to see if there's anything positive that will come out of this, and I think there will be. I think there already is. One of my goals was to exercise more, and I exercise about 3 to 5 times a week, but it wasn't enough. And eating better, obviously, and kind of like taking care of myself. And the thing is, if you don't have your health, then nothing else is important. And for me, that is the number one goal. It has been for a while. And because I have cerebral palsy, you really have to keep up on these things because otherwise, it's wheelchair time or it's something else. and I'm not ready for a wheelchair, and I like movement, and it's freedom of opportunity as well. So again, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it as always. I just want to explain what happened exactly, and I look forward to seeing you guys in another video. So have a good one.